Yeah, you mentioned like therapy sessions and just kind of joke about it, but there's probably just a lot of meaning in the fact that people get to actually just express their heart to someone, things they're going through, all that kind of stuff. When I think about that, I really think about something that Bria said to me, my wife, one time and she's a dentist, and I was saying something about ministry and kind of, I don't think I meant to communicate this, but what I ended up communicating was that what she was doing wasn't as important as what I was doing because I was working at a church. And I didn't even realize I was doing it, but she even, like, with tears in her eyes said, like, this is my ministry. Like, this is where God has led me. This is my ministry. Like, I care for people, and I think about the amount of people who do care for people, and it looks a little bit different than the way that I, when I was working at a church, cared for people. So, something I know that you really do care about is, like we had talked about before, taking Jesus with you wherever you go. And like, you can't escape ministry. Do you want to kind of speak into that a little bit? Because I know it's a posture you carry with you.
Yeah. Generally, I think that God crafts us in different ways with the passions that we have and our own personalities, and everything about us that makes us different from someone else is given to us by God.
Sure.
So I believe that God's Spirit is inside of me. It's inside of you. And whatever we do in our professions or our daily lives, like, our life is ministry.
Yeah.
It's not just being in a church. It's not just doing certain ministries, like, even good ministries, like working at a homeless shelter or, food drives, whatever you want to name. When you think of like serving or ministry or, stuff like that, those are the things that I kind of think of, the organized things. But it's like, no, like there's an industry that I'm a part of that just so happens to be like a very dark industry, where, it's even less common to meet Christians in that industry than probably other industries. And it's literally my job to be who I am, in spite of that.
Yeah.
Like, go into those dark places and just be me. Being a Christian or being a tattooer and that being my ministry doesn't mean that every day I wake up and share the gospel with my client. What it means is I conduct myself and my business in a manner worthy of the gospel of Christ, and I simply love people. I have those conversations with people. Sometimes they lead to spiritual conversations, and when they do, I'll completely take advantage of that, and it's awesome, and I want it to happen more. But conversations don't always go that way. It doesn't mean that I'm not still loving people with how I treat them, and how I talk, your form of speech. Like, I feel like there's other ways for the light to shine to people than just specifically telling them about Jesus.
Yeah. It's probably got to be hard too, because you can get like drug into areas of conversation that you actually are kind of like, probably should stay away from this. Like, probably don't have too much to speak into this conversation. Yeah, man. No, that's so good. A friend and I, Ryan Furr, Ryan, shout out to Ryan.
What up?
Check out Beardly Creative and Ryan Furr on YouTube. But we had a conversation recently about how ministry is not just working at a church. And, a lot of times at churches, we kind of end up communicating to people, through means of like, there's this avenue to go into ministry as a vocation. And a lot of times that looks like maybe like a Bible college or like a seminary education. And then suddenly, like, it's like, okay, God's called me into ministry, which is kind of a wild thought anyway, right? Because everyone's, so many people can say, well, God called me into ministry, and somebody could hear them talk and say, nope, that wasn't God. Like, might have been the pizza, might have, wasn't God.
Yeah.
And that's not to throw stones at people who, God actually has called into something that aren't particularly gifted in what people think they should be gifted in. But, I say that to say, it's really common for us to subtly communicate that if you're not working at a church or in a parachurch ministry, you know, like Crew or something like that, that you are not in ministry, that you're not a minister, that you're not supposed to be doing the same thing I'm doing, you know, if I'm working at a church. And then you can't be surprised when people act like, well, you're on staff at a church, so you should do everything because you're the person that's supposed to do ministry. And it's like, no. We're supposed to equip the saints to do the work of the ministry. And that's people who are working in tattoo shops and, you know, wherever else they might find themselves. So
no,
I'll let you
really,
pick the topics.
Yeah, really just on that last conversation. I think that God's spirit is contagious. It's infectious, you know, like I think that if you are living, you know, if you are at all obeying God's call on your life as far as just the call to love him,
right,
you know, and to serve him,
right,
and to worship him, I think that people can see that through who you are, through your speech, through your conduct, the way you conduct business, you know, like everything about it. So the goal is just to love people.
Yeah. 2 greatest commandments, love God and love people. It's like really easy, but really, really hard at the same time.